On BBC Two shortly, the fall and rise of Reginald Perrin enters Phase 2. Here on BBC One in half an hour...
Government is safe are quite unacceptable to an international community. And the real damning thing of all is that the government have known about this since May 1985 and have done nothing about it, and now won't admit it, and yet they criticise the Russians for not making available to us information when they've had information of this kind and done nothing.
To get the government's reaction to the evidence that standards should be tightened up, we first approached the Environment Minister, Mr. William Waldegrave. He's responsible for radioactive emissions from places like Sellafield. But we were told here, no, other ministers had more direct responsibilities to the public. Since it's the Department of Employment that puts out the radiation regulations, we approached their minister, Kenneth Clark. He declined, saying that the matter was wholly scientific and that it would be inappropriate to make a political comment. Finally, we approached the Minister of Health because he actually appoints the National Radiological Protection Board. Mr. Barney Hayhoe first agreed to an interview, but then he too decided that no, the issues were essentially scientific. He gave us this statement saying that Parliament had deliberately decided to put the Radiological Protection Board at arm's length so that its independence not be prejudiced. And I quote, "I believe, therefore, that it's inappropriate for a minister to discuss or defend the board's scientific judgment." Well, after Chernobyl, we asked each of the ministers again, and each again said thanks, but no.
Now, I don't believe that bodies of scientists of that type should be responsible for making what are basically moral judgments about what is acceptable for workers or the general public, because they work with it all the time, so they have a certain contempt for it. They've accepted the risk. They therefore take the position that everybody should accept the risk. And I think it should be in the hands of those who are politically responsible to the people and the workers. They should be the ones that have to make these decisions.
In the end, the nuclear scientists genuinely think they're playing safe. The scientific critics genuinely think that once again, the nuclear establishment's got it wrong and the risks are too high. The politicians seem to want to stay out of the argument. So how can we know how safe is safe?
On Saturday evening, BBC Two looks back at the explosion at the SL-1 experimental nuclear reactor in Idaho in 1961, and in the light of more recent events, remembers the practical difficulties of coping with contamination on a large scale. The film will be followed by a live studio discussion with Nick Ross asking British and American experts what lessons are to be drawn from it and whether we're now any better at coping with radioactive spills. SL-1, A New Way to Die, is on Saturday evening at 8:30 on BBC Two. Next week's Panorama turns its attention to South Africa and reports on the Comrades, young people throughout the country who are struggling to impose their will on both black and white. Panorama next Monday at the same time, 9:30.
On Friday, Omnibus meets Alice Walker, author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel and the Steven Spielberg film The Color Purple. A sensitive and reflective author and something of a recluse, Alice Walker rarely gives interviews.
Well, I went down to Burbank to see the characters that Reuben Cannon, the casting director, had chosen. And I was afraid because I thought that they would just look so totally different from what I had imagined. But they looked great. I mean, they looked like I knew them.
There's an expectation out there because of who I am that people expect my films to always do well. And so when I tackle Color Purple, there's a very good chance that a movie like Color Purple will not do well because it's about subject matter. It isn't, it doesn't have special effects in it, doesn't have spacemen, doesn't have Star Wars, doesn't have some of the trappings that we've come to identify with broad audience appeal movies.
From her California retreat and her hometown Georgia, Alice Walker talks in a rare interview about her work and her life for Omnibus.
And now, to complete our Monday night, the Monday film with what can only be described as a chilling story.